everybody. Can you hear me? Good evening. Thank you so much for joining our session this evening and making time to come this week. Thank you to the DocShare team for the hard work behind the scenes, making this possible every single week. I am not alone. I am with Amira, who is going to be helping with the technical support behind the scenes there and shouting out if there are any questions on the chat throughout the webinar and the session. So if you hear her voice, just know that she is also a part of the team and keeping an eye on the chats. This week, I'm super excited and happy to share that we are officially halfway through our webinars. Please continue to tune in, join, and engage. We are happy and super grateful for your participation for our DocShare webinars that are coming to you every week at 6 p.m. So please continue to support. The sessions are free for all our DFA members. If you are not already a member, please be inspired and encouraged to join our community and be part of this amazing, dynamic documentary filmmakers community. And still stay tuned and join our discussions throughout the session. My name is Neohola and I will be the facilitator today. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm really passionate about youth empowerment. I'm also a DFA board member representing youth voices, heading the docYOUTH subcommittee that is for youth, by youth, that encourages youth voice, visibility, as well as celebrating the work that youth is doing. So please, if you're not already a member or the member of the docYOUTH or the DocShare, shout out. We'll be so happy to include you and add you into our community. And then moving forward, today's session, we are going to be looking at how to apply for the Youth Fund. We will unpack how documentary filmmakers can really position themselves to access the IDC Youth Fund, what their requirements are, and how to apply as a youth-led project, and how to better align with their funding criteria. And please do note that this opportunity is not only eligible for SA youth, but also South African film companies that has at least 26% of youth ownership. Our speaker is here from the IDC who will share more about this. And I would also like to take this opportunity to really thank our speakers for your time and coming to share your knowledge and your experience. We are super excited to learn from you and to hear more about the work that you're doing in our industry. So I'm going to introduce all our speakers in the order in which they are going to be presenting. I have their bios here, which I'll be reading it out to you. So our first speaker is docYOUTH member Sikhulule Moyeni. She is a lover of stories, an observer of life and the human experience. Her documentary filmmaking approach is rooted in curiosity, continuously learning and unlearning, and seeking truths that exist between frames. She holds a BA in Media, Communications and Culture, and an honors degree in Media Studies from the Nelson Mandela University. She was born in Eastern Cape, but spent most of her life in Newcastle, KZN. Her work spans photography and journalism, shaped by her experiences in newsroom and creative spaces such as Newscope, the South African, Madibaz News, and Propeller Business Incubator. She is captivated by motion, texture, and small moments that reveal greater truths, awkward pauses, quiet resilience, and the beauty of the in-betweens. For her, documentary is less about spectacles and more about listening, patience, and collaboration. She has shared a quote with us which says that stories aren't trends, they are human, they are messy, and worth staying with. She is currently working on a personal project, which I'm looking forward to hear more about it in the session. And then our next speaker, we are joined by Mr. Malebongwe Nzuza. He is a deal maker for the Savers Strategic Business Unit, which also includes media and audiovisuals, ICT, healthcare, and tourism at the Industrial Development Corporation, and the abbreviation is the IDC. His primary responsibility includes structuring and assessing feasibility of projects within the said business unit. With the objective to achieve the development mandate of the IDC. And lastly, our speaker is Mpho Tau, who is also a docYOUTH member. Mpho was born and bred in Bloemfontein. His journey in film and television industry spans a period of 12 months, having firstly started in theater around the year 2003 with a drama group called Majita Comedians. He studied with Nemisa in 2013 and Big Fish School of Digital Making in 2019. Mpho worked on various productions, including international drama series called The Professionals, where he occupied the role of VT trainee with mentorship from Boloba Taba Media Group. Mpho produced and directed his first short documentary, 24 minutes documentary film titled Grow in the Dark in 2023. The film enjoyed runs in various film festivals across the country, and it won Best Short Documentary at Ekurhuleni International Film Festival. Through his company, 1976 Films, Mpho runs a public movie screening initiative called 76 Cinema. Recently, he just completed and managed their screenplay writers lab targeted at emerging writers in Mangaung Metro. All that Mpho wants is really to tell stories. Um, Thank you everyone for your patience and for the incredible bios from our speakers tonight. I would like to encourage active participation. Please raise your hand if you have a question, a comment, or want to contribute to the discussion. Mute yourself if you're not speaking, and open your videos if you can. It's always much better if we are interacting with actual humans instead of a blank or a black video. So if you can open your video, please do so. It makes the session just more engaging and quite intimate when we can see each other, it encourages participation. And please also make sure that you type in your questions on the chats or your comments. We will go through them as the session goes, as we continue to facilitate this session. And Amira will be here to read out the questions. So moving forward, I am so excited to facilitate in the session. And I just want to mention that currently as a country, we are really, really, really at a critical time, especially as South African youth, with 43.7, I think, yeah, a 43.7% of youth unemployment. And it doesn't even make it easier as a documentary industry. Funding is drying out and it's becoming more and more and more difficult for documentary filmmakers to survive, essentially. So I can only imagine how it's like for youth and young emerging filmmakers. Kind of feels like a career doom. I don't want to go into too much details because I get really passionate and emotional about the journey and where the documentary is going and if there's even a future to our industry at this point. But before I go any further, I would like to open the floor up to our first speaker, Siku, to really just share about her journey as a young filmmaker and what has been some of the challenges that you've come across in your journey. Siku, you wanna?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, well, thank you, Neo, for that wonderful introduction. Um, as Neo has captured, I am Sikhulule Moyeni, and I essentially grew up in Newcastle, KwaZulu-Natal. And I've always been a lover of stories, like the human experience as a whole, like being exposed to like different cultures and a different way of living further cemented this dream of Nelson Mandela, the Rainbow Nation, and the melting pot that South Africa is. And this human experience just moved me because it's beautiful. It has the good, the bad, the in-betweens, the seemingly insignificant moments, but they are powerful in a sense. And to tell stories from that human experience is powerful. And this is the importance of telling stories of the human experiences because they move us, they inspire us, they inform us, and they motivate us, which is why I decided to pursue a career in film, and I'm still pursuing a career in film. And what's the best way of telling stories rather than telling them film through the lens? Capturing every moment in time, documenting it so that it freezes, creating that evidence of memories. So essentially, that is why I chose to do this. Um, the rude awakening with my journey. So my journey started essentially in varsity, but then I was always mesmerized by the art of telling a story through film, most definitely documentary filmmaking. So learning it through varsity, the technical parts of it was exciting. It sort of like gave you hope of saying, "Oh yeah, I can do this. Like I have the skills now, so I can do it." But then the rude awakening came after um graduating because now you have to navigate the creative space, the business side of the creativity. And the question that rose to me was to go into film or to pursue something else. Am I pursuing a dead dream or should I still fight for this dream? So at this point, I'm at corporate doing like digital content creation, which is not too far to what I would love to do, which is filmmaking. It sort of like makes you feel like the dream is still near. Working towards that, still working towards the dream by trying to fund it through this corporate job. Um, the question of where to go from now was raised after graduation. So I had this question of saying, where do I go now because I've graduated? I want to pursue my career in film. I want to tell stories that matter. The human experience deserves to be told. You know, that zeal of being a youth and that zeal of wanting to tell a story, being part of something big, being part of the human experience, capturing it in real time to say. Um, what I thought about was finding connections, like connecting with like-minded people, with a community like the DFA, and creating so that you can funnel the creation that you make and funnel it through this, like through a community. And luckily, I was exposed to DocShare, which is how I got into DFA. It was through DocShare, where this rude awakening became more because now I was introduced to applying to funding. That was the NFVF. So the process of applying for funding at NFVF, I was lucky to have like a mentor to guide me through it. It was daunting. I don't want to lie because now the theory part of it is becoming practical. The practicality of actually trying to apply for it now it's becoming real. Um, Being at that crossroads as an emerging filmmaker who's still developing a project and curious about funding, but not funded yet, but trying to navigate the uncertainty of will I get funding, as Neo said, because of the economy, what we're going through in South Africa, it's quite tough. Now thinking that I might have these projects, I have all of these projects, I have these ideas of stories, and I have stories to tell, but as a youth, an individual who doesn't have a business, because I do not have a business, and it becomes sort of like difficult now to find a way to uh, the information as to how to apply for funding. You have to go look for yourself. You need to engage with communities like the DFA and try to find out ways to apply for funding. So the question remains as the youth of saying, like, for example, as myself, as an emerging filmmaker, was to say, because when I was applying for the NFVF, what became more clear to me was the fact that you'd had to have like a business or production company to apply for funding. So now the question was, oh, do I start a business just because I want to apply for funding? I'm not too sure if my film will make it that big, like will be successful. Let's say I get this funding. Will my film be successful because I want to do a documentary? Is there a market for documentary filmmaking if I do this film also? So these questions were very permanent in my mind. And it was so daunting that I had to draw back. I just became too scared to even apply for funding because of the paperwork. The process itself sounded so daunting because you wouldn't know, even though you have guidance at some point, but it's like, it's so scary. Do I have to be established first, build like a repertoire before applying for funding? Finding out that you have to look for an established producer. What happens if you don't have connections? You don't have like a connection to a person who's a producer like that. Where do I even start with this? I need to have like a financial person to help me with the finances because you can't just apply for funding and just scheme through stuff. You have to be precise with how you're going to spend the money. What do you need it for? The ins and outs, the business side of the filmmaking business, which was quite a rude awakening. And I just had to come into terms of saying, you know what, maybe take it one step at a time, which is why I'm here today. And I agreed to join this panel just to ask those questions, to say, yes, I am at a crossroads right now as an emerging filmmaker in South Africa. I would want to apply for funding. How do I go about it? What is the criteria, especially as a emerging filmmaker? Let's say I don't know a specific established producer. What if the producer that I know is emerging like me? Because I'm surrounded by youth, so I would know a Senzo who just graduated with me, who's into producing, and that's my producer. What happens then? Um, yeah, that were my questions. It's like no one teaches us those financial modeling stuff, let alone explain SPVs and recoupment and surety. The paperwork just seems intimidating at that point because there's a lot of things that go into applying for funding. And you would need someone to guide you through it. And sometimes you become so afraid to even reach out to established filmmakers because they're busy. Sometimes they're busy. You just think to yourself they're too busy to even reply to your email. You just one email out of 100 or 150. So it becomes that thing. And then you just experience this psychological barrier of imposter syndrome when looking for funding, especially the fear of rejection, and not knowing if you're big enough yet to even go that step. Maybe you still need to grow. Maybe you still need to do small little projects on the side, self-funded ones, in order to go for this big thing. Because sometimes if it's presented as this big project, you might just become too scared to even pursue it. Um, and then the business question also of when does a filmmaker become a business person, like business minded? Do I need audited financials before I secure funding? Those were like the questions that I had when trying to apply for the NFBF, and just saying, do we do we just build credibility before we go for the money? The big question: what also happens after the funding? Do I still have full ownership of my firm? How do I make that money back if it's a grant? It's a lot. It's a lot of questions, and you just remain with those questions. But part of it is asking and reaching out and joining these sessions to get more information. So what I am currently learning is that what I'm currently doing is developing a film project. It's in its research space. It's in its research phases. I'm developing it. I'm trying to look into how sometimes people who are struggling tend to sometimes, through my conversations with some people, I've realized that sometimes we take our struggles that we go through in life, we take those struggles, they become our identity. So how do we then separate that and separate that struggle from your identity so that it doesn't become that hindrance, that ceiling that stops you from going for your dreams. Just I'm looking into poverty related shame. Is it a thing? Is it something that we can work through and disintegrate so that you can get rid of that shame? And yes, probably you might have been through some hard times, but it doesn't define you. That story of hope, of saying it doesn't define you, and but I'm just still working through it, finding ways as to find how can I tell the story more effectively. And so that's what I'm working with right now. And yeah, currently in the process of that. Maybe after that, um, I might be applying for funding. So I'm here just to engage with that. Yeah, that's it about me.
Thank you so much, Siku. I saw Mpho laughing as you were sharing because some of the things that you talked out about are so real and so relatable, and that I know for a fact that a lot of us are going through that same process because you didn't sign up to be a business person. We literally just wanted to be storytellers and tell our documentaries. So now we are caught up in so many technicalities. It's so blurry and confusing. And with what you have shared, I have a very burning question that I want to ask Enva, because I know that part of his journey, he has been privileged enough to be able to. Back in the days, there was the SABC opportunity that really used to help young filmmakers to find their feet, to develop their own project and stories and skills, which is not there anymore. And it's quite disappointing and extremely worrying that there isn't enough support, especially for us, the newer generation like this. We're just all kind of like competing in the same pot with others, and it's extremely difficult and frustrating and hard to navigate because it's not easy. All we have is how to tell our stories and not really how to run a business. I know this by experience because I had to deregister a production company after having opened it because the NAVF funding required a company. After that, it was so difficult. Like I just could not continue. It was demanding, and I didn't know what to do, how to do it. Tax was demanding me for more money, and I'm like, I'm just a girl, and I don't know how to work around this. So I had to deregister it and kind of like figure things out. I don't know where I'm going to go after this. Like Siku, kind of like stuck as well in the process. Enva, which can come in.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, so I guess, with the privilege of gray hair, is the indication that I've been around for a long time. Probably Siku was not even born. So I've been doing work with the SABC from 1993, 1994. So on the eve of democracy, I found myself making content for SABC at a particularly vibrant time in our history of our country because we were on the eve of democracy. So it was a good place to be because SABC was like the melting pot of what was happening, and pretty soon after that, the in terms of the staff that they got, and when things changed, because I mean I was there that early enough where I mean it was virtually all white, so there were a lot of opportunities for people of color and they hadn't really seen content that was made through a different eyes, through a different lens. So so it was a particularly good time to be at the SABC, and the SABC really worked and functioned like a public broadcaster should for quite a while. And I cut my teeth in the beginning on the simple, and I call it the humble insert. I provided content for the show was called Good Morning South Africa. It's called Morning Live today. And the production company I worked for provided the content for that show, and we went all over the country, making 3 to 5 minute inserts. And I tell you that those insert discipline that I learned is what stands me in good stead today. So the humble insert with its beginning, middle, and end is the kind of core sort of skill that one should learn. And and helps you move on to bigger things. But in a nutshell, you learn how to tell the narrative of a story in a very tight space, and what to leave out and what to include. So for sort of people that want to, at the starting stages of getting into this industry, I kind of recommend that the humble insert is where you start. Like, and even, today, as we know, things are really bad in the industry. Um, Look at ways of doing inserts for NGOs, your SPCA around the corner, some little company that wants to advertise its brand. All those type of things will give you the opportunity to perhaps do that. Because I found that after a few years of doing that, moving on to bigger things was actually like the next step, because I used that basis or that foundation of learning from scratch, and how to construct a story in a very short space of time. Um, and the SABC for a long time was doing the job that it was meant to do, and that was to provide content for independent producers and filmmakers. The SABC had a booklet like they used to give out every year, an RPF, where I mean, it was literally sometimes like it was this thick of the channels, SABC 1, 2, and 3, and the requirements they had for local content. There was so much work coming out of the SABC. I remember there were times when I would be doing 4 to 5 productions in a go at more or less the same time. Other production companies would be hiring me as a director or producer. I would be doing my own thing. It is the SABC was very vibrant. I think things started to change when Cloudy came and basically started to destroy the SABC from within. And things haven't changed since then. Um, COVID didn't make things any better. But if you want to look at the problems that we have today, um, with the SABC as the national broadcaster, we probably can nail it down to the fact that they're not commissioning as they used to. As I mentioned, the the briefs that were about this thick seem to provide a lot of work for freelancers, producers, and that ilk. So there was a lot of work to go around. And since this has stopped, like we were having the march, the DTI and that type of thing. But I also put a lot of blame fairly at the front door of SABC, and the fact that they're not commissioning work has become a big problem for us today. So I think for young filmmakers, you're coming into sorry to say, but a industry that is struggling. Um, and if you want to make inroads into the industry, you're going to have to pivot, and you're going to have to pivot massively, and look at alternative ways of how do I make myself stand out, because there are graduates every year coming out of film schools, out of universities. I'm not sure what the figure is, but it could be thousands every year that happens. And the industry is too small to cater to that at the moment, because there's just not enough work to go around. So how do you make yourself stand out? How do you pivot? How do you make yourself special? Um, things like getting ahead of the game of AI. A lot of things are moving that way. So become a specialist in AI technology. Look at making content for YouTube, Instagram, and different avenues. I just come from. I was at the GFC workshop they had today, and again, it was in a cinema in New Metro, Cinema Nouveau, and they had to move us out to a bigger cinema because there were so many people like who had come for this GFC Gauteng Film Commission masterclass on distribution. So again, you get the indication of how many people are looking for opportunities, and they mentioned areas to look at are like micro dramas, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Vimeo, and something I didn't know of, Roblox, Roblox. So you've got to look at different ways, learn a different language. So when film crews are here from China, you know how to speak Chinese, and you can get a job. So you have to make yourself special. You have to stand out. And also what helped me in my journey was, I didn't stick to one sort of genre in TV. I've done everything. I've done talk shows, reality shows, sports shows, and now I'm concentrating on documentary. But I mean, I worked on Survivor as a content producer, and Master Chef, and that type of thing. So, but that didn't stop me from getting to serious documentary later on. So again, like in Survivor, sometimes the whole premise of the story is based on the master interview, and we sometimes we sit down with the contestant, interview them for 4 hours to get the storyline for the whole day. But that perfected my skills in interviewing, and I use that in documentary. So don't feel shy that oh, I'm a reality TV director, I can't get into documentary. There's no rule that says that. So yeah, things are not as good as they used to be. I call them the glory days. I was around for the glory days, and I enjoyed it, and it was really nice to work on multiple productions. But things are changing, and
Yeah.
and you need to pivot, and I think we're having a reset at the moment, and I think hopefully through the SABC getting its act together. I still believe firmly in the SABC as a national broadcaster. You only have to see their coverage when there's elections and that type of thing to notice how important it is to have a national broadcaster and to provide content for them. So it's down to agencies like the GFC, NAVF, DTI, IDC to then provide the funds for filmmakers, to make their productions so that it's a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Enva, for your valuable contribution. We've heard we need to diversify and see if we can capacitate ourselves even further and working with NGOs. I think those are the key things that I got that are super, super helpful from what you have spoken about. It is really sad that opportunities like the SABC are not there anymore. It's quite worrying about the future of our generation if we don't have platforms that really encourage and empower us to be the best that we can and to be able to compete on that level. However, I hope that organizations like the DFA, we can help support and see if there's any way that we can redeem it in any form. Without wasting any more time, I would like to call upon Mr. Malibongwe Zuza from the IDC to share more about the Youth Fund and what their criteria are and what we need to apply for their funding.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. As introduced, I am Malibongwe Nzuza. I'm part of the IDC, working in a business unit within the IDC that's called Services Business Unit. That's a unit that looks after a sector, the media and audiovisual sector. I was saying I'm working in a business services business unit, which is a business unit that looks after the services type of businesses within the IDC. So IDC, I think it was created mostly for manufacturing businesses, but I think after observing what's happening in the market, the ITC decided then to include a services business unit. So the business unit looks at the service type of businesses. Mainly, we've got tourism, maybe the infrastructure for tourism. That's the hotels, the hospitals as well, healthcare. We do look at that. Then the ICT services, not the manufacturing of the equipment, that's looked at by a different business unit. So we look at ICT services, and then we've got media and audiovisual, which is well, quite an exciting sector, which is the reason why I'm here. It's for the media and audiovisual parts of our business unit. So for this presentation, I'll just go on high level on IDC, and then stick mainly to the media and audiovisual parts of our business unit. So. The IDC, it is the largest and probably the oldest development finance institution that is owned by the government of South Africa, but it is not funded by the government of South Africa. So it's been around for quite some time, since the 40s. So we've been around 85 years, more than 85 years. It's going to be 86 this year. We are fully owned by the South African government, and the idea behind the IDC was to build industrial capacity so that we can support economy. Usually, they'll say we play a counter-cyclical role in the economy, in that we do provide funding even when the economy is going down, to sort of support the businesses. So we will typically be there if in sectors. Even when the economy is tough, IDC is typically there in the economy. And I think, as I've mentioned, we do have quite a number of sectors that we look at. Mainly, they are manufacturing oriented, but we do have the services sector in that big block there, where media and audiovisual sector sits, which is the main, the key sector for this discussion. So what does the media and audiovisual business unit, what is it there for? It is there mainly to support the productions of local feature films, television shows, documentaries. It is there really to support the producers or the entrepreneurs within the media and audiovisual space. How we look at it in terms of what we support as a business unit, we've sort of put this into three categories. One being content creation, which is where we look at films, documentaries, which I think it's the more relevant for this session. We do look at series, so docu-series as well. They will be in there. Animation, your Shiny Floor shows, gaming, we are sort of getting into it, but we're not exactly there, but it is part of what we intend to look at. And then on the second stream of what we look at, it's production facilities that touches on something like the studios, be it soundstage or just your television studios, gear rental, production support services, So it's whatever other equipment that is there to support. Broadcast studios, for radio, we've funded some radio stations. And then we've got the last leg where post-production and audience development. So that's where we look mostly in the post-production facilities. Yeah, I'm sure you know about them. Dubbing and distribution. If there is ideas to reach more audience, we do look at that and quite keen to fund. Think audience development. It's probably where, as a country, we are sort of lacking. We really do not get our material as far as I think we can. So on how do we fund? Okay, I think this slide is a bit more technical, but I will try. So if there are questions on it, I'm more than happy to come back to it. I think in the beginning I indicated that we are a government-owned entity, but we are not funded by the government. You probably noted yesterday that there was no allocation for the IDC. I think because we are a self-funded entity. We are an SOE, so self-funded. How we generate money is through divestments from matured investments, if there is any. We've had some exits, and then the internally generated profits that will be through interest and the returns from the investments that we've made before. And we do borrow from the international or domestic markets, so raising a bond so that we get some money to then fund the projects or the entrepreneurs who come through to the ITC for looking for funding. So given this nature of the business, it puts ITC in a space where when we fund, we do not really have grant funding. Obviously, we do administer some of the soft loans or grant funding in some instances, but it's not really the ITC money that does that. So in general, we do not have grant funding. So in terms of the limits of how much ITC funds, I think typically in the development finance space, we've got quite a number in the country. So we play in different spaces. I think from on the lower end, you'll have the CFAs and the NEFs. Okay, it's different ranges, but they are on the lower end, and then you'll have the IDC, maybe the DBSAs on the other hand. So the IDC, it's there from I'll say small business up to large businesses. So our funding will range from about 1 million up to 1 billion. So if there's anything requiring ITC funding that's less than 1 million, we are unfortunately unable to fund that. So yeah, if you're coming through, the requirement from the ITC should be above 1 million rands. I've given it in dollars. I know filmmakers, they tend to do co-productions and have the finances expressed in dollars. So that's the range there. And that we do have caps for the media and audiovisual space on how much we can fund. As it is said now, we can only fund up to 49% of the total project. And typically the other 51%, we expect the entrepreneur to raise that. It's usually soft funding that they raise, or some of it comes in a form of co-productions. If you will be having a co-production partner, maybe coming with the 51%, then ITC is able to fill in the 49% through various funding instruments that I'm going to discuss shortly. So yeah, in general, we do not provide the full funding for the projects or for the slate of projects if it comes in as a slate. And in terms of the region that we are funding, the IDC in general, it's oriented to fund in South Africa and in the rest of the continent. The mandate is for that. So outside of that, typically we do not fund. But in the film space, we accept co-productions from all around the world, essentially, and it doesn't necessarily have to be official co-productions. That is the ones that are certified by the NFVF, as long as there is a proper co-production agreement between the South African producer and the international partner. We do consider that, so we are not really limited to official co-productions.
Yeah. Mr. Malibongwe, before you continue, there is a question for you from Cheryl. Yes, I see a hand from you, Amira. Do you want to?
I was just alerting you to Cheryl's question.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And then the question for Malibongwe says that, do you consider immersive or VR documentaries as gaming or film? Just before you continue, question for you.
Yeah, a good one. I don't think it will matter because we do gaming. So if we have a project that is viable, whether it's in the gaming space or as a film, then we will consider it. I think the classification just becomes the technicalities of it. But if it's within what we consider in what I showed in the other slide, then we will consider it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Please feel free to write in your questions as we're going with the discussion. If you have any burning questions, you can raise your hand to ask as Mr. Malibongwe is presenting. You can go ahead and continue. I'll just alert you when there's another one. Thank you.
Yeah, and in terms of how we fund the projects, we use certain instruments. It really depends on what is the need in the project. Typically, we will use a loan funding. That's usually the preferred instrument or what we use mostly. And I think we tend to use it mostly when we are cash flowing, saying cash flowing of your well, the rebates is not around at this stage. But if you're cash flowing the pre-sales or minimum guarantee, that's what we will typically use. It becomes easier to use a senior loan because you can time the interest. You sort of have a production schedule and maybe milestones from a pre-sale to say we will pay at this stage. If it's a minimum guarantee, you know when the sale will start. You can sort of predict how the cash flows will look like, and so it becomes easier and cheaper to use loan funding for such instances. And quasi-equity, we tend to use that mostly to close the gap when say you've got your 51% and you've got your receivables, that's your MG and the pre-sales. If there's still a gap, then we will tend to use a quasi-equity instrument. So it's something in between a loan and equity. So that's typically based on the cash flows of the projects. We like to use that because it relies on the cash flows of the projects, especially for this sector, because predicting the cash flows of the projects it's not as easy. You do not know which streamer or TV channel is gonna buy your content at which stage. You sort of sell and see as the cash flows through.
Yeah.
So
just a question, Mr. Sorry, before you continue, as you were mentioning about how difficult it is for cash flows, I'm just curious to find out about the interest repayments on the loan. You did mention that you offer 1 million. If it's less than that, you don't really accept the applications. What are the interest? What are the percentages when it comes to interest repayments to the support that you give to filmmakers who are applying for your fund?
Yeah, a typical interest on this, it will be something like a prime plus 1.5 for cash flowing of say an MG or a pre-sale. well, if there is other soft loans that are paid in milestones, yeah, it is around that. It's still prime based, but well, I do understand that the Reserve Bank is planning to change that, so we will probably follow whatever the guidance we will get from the Reserve Bank when and if that changes. So, but at this stage, it is about the prime plus 1.5 or so.
Okay.
Yeah, and then for a quasi-equity instrument, that's usually based on the return that we expect on the project. Yeah, mainly anchored on the cost of funds for the IDC, because we still have to pay back our the investors, especially if we are borrowing from the international markets, domestic and international markets. That's typically linked to the borrowing rates that we incur in that instance. And equity funding, we have used equity instrument in our funding. It's not in many cases. Typically, our committees prefer to use this instrument in projects of strategic nature. Yeah, if it is something that is say strategic for the country or for the province, we will typically consider that. Or for the industry itself, we will typically consider putting in equity funding in such projects. I think, yeah, maybe at this stage, building of studios in the country, I think we are lagging behind. If it is something of that nature that can help other filmmakers, it is something that we can probably look at putting in equity funding into it. So we do use those instruments, and it really depends on the needs of the project, on which one do we use for the projects. We assess the needs of the projects, and then we use the instruments accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question from Shirley. You can go ahead and ask the question, Shirley.
Hi. I just wanted to check with you, and I might have missed it. You mentioned that I think, if I'm right, the IDC will provide up to 49%, and then the 51% would come in soft funding raised or co-production, etc. So if, for example, this new fund, the youth fund, or any project per se, do you have to have that 51% in place before coming to the IDC? So do you have to have co-production deals in place, or can you sort of come with letters of intent or show sort of a plan of fundraising? I'm just curious as to what point.
Yeah,
I
typically
guess I misunderstood the way it works. Sorry.
Yeah, no, typically the projects that come to the IDC will be just before pre-production, so around about that stage, and that's usually after some development has been done, and maybe a producer having looked at how they can put together the financing plan for the projects. So as producers come to the IDC, it's typically at that stage where they probably have a co-production partner, and maybe having applied to the other institutions for soft funding. So it's typically around that stage.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
what we'll typically do maybe earlier on, if you're not at that stage, and there is a project that is of interest to the IDC, so that is within what IDC does, we will provide you with a letter of interest to sort of assist you to start with the process of raising funds.
Yeah. Going back to, there's a question on the chats from Carolyn. She's saying that Malibongo it will be good to expand more on the youth fund. Is the interest prime 2%, or please explain the terms of the loan versus equity and how you recoup your loans, or equity, at which stage of the recoupment waterfall, and percentage of equity do you take on the back end, do you take of the net producer profits after recouping it before before you break even? Yeah, essentially that's the question.
Okay. Yeah, the percentages on the youth fund, I would like to leave that for later on in the presentation. I do have slides covering that. The other question was on recoupment on we will typically want to rank in first, but it doesn't really happen in practice. Typically, you'll have the distributor taking their distribution commission first, say 20 to 35%. I think that's the norm in the industry, maybe 15 up to 35%, somewhere there. That's what will typically go first. If there is a karma in the projects, that will go before the ITC as well. I think something like 1%. And then the ITC and maybe the other funders will then follow. Typically, we will rank pari passu with the other funders. Yeah, but if we can rank first, we will take that. But yeah, we'll typically rank pari passu with the other funders in the project. So the last question, yeah, if you can assist me there, Neo.
Yeah. So the last question was on equity, and how if the producer's profit after recouping it before breaking even. I think that's the question.
Oh no,
It's on
Male
equity.
Bongwe, I was just sorry, I'll come in. It's Carolyn. I just was thinking, hi, it was helpful to expand because a lot of the producers haven't used loans or equity. So just to expand on the concept of loan and equity, and then how you recoup, do you recoup your whole loan and equity before the break even? And then after you've broken even, what percentage of the net producer profit do you take as IDC? So what do you share with the producers? What percentage? Is it the same as what you invested, or do you break it up part loan, part equity? So let's say you do 10% loan and 20% equity, then do you get paid back your 20% equity, you still take 20% of the back end of the net producer profit? That's so people can understand the difference.
Yeah, it depends on the instrument that we are using. If it's a loan, what we get is purely the interest. So for your normal loans, not the youth ones, we will typically get the prime plus 1.5 for cash flowing. If it was cash flowing, if it wasn't cash flowing, I think it's the risk is slightly higher. That's on that quasi equity instrument. In the recent applications, we've been using what is known as a subordinated loan. So it's still a loan. So what we will get will still be only interest. So whatever the producers get at the end as their profits for a loan, we do not get anything. But if we are using a venture loan, which is a venture loan will have a behavior more like equity. So in those instances, then for a venture loan, we will look at the return that we are looking to get. Yeah, typical return for the IDC for venture loans. I'll say something around about 13%. So when we have received that return, then we are out of the projects. The whatever profits are in there, then they become the producer's profits. If it's equity, it means we are sort of a partner in the project. So whatever proportion we've put in, so if we put in 10% equity, then our profits will be in line with that. So in your example, Caroline, if we had 10% loan and then 10% equity, so at the end, we'll only be left with the equity portion, the 10%. We won't take the 20%. Because the loan will have been out by then.
Thank you so much, Madebongwe. The 15 minutes that I have put for your time is almost over, but I would really love for you to talk more about the Youth Fund because there are some key questions on that I have written down. Thank you.
Cool, cool. I will just skim through on this. The considerations they're just on the three aspects that we will typically look at in a project. In the ability of the production company to produce the quality that's required, that we will term as the technical aspects of the project. That's typically not a problem in South Africa. The marketing aspects, that's usually the problem, I think, having to do with the distributors. In most of the projects that have failed in the IDC, it was because maybe we didn't make enough money in the market. So that's typically what is problematic to the applications that come to the IDC. The financial part is just assessing if the projects can make the money. So that relies mostly on the recruitment schedule. I think the other aspects that we do consider are those of job creation and transformation. That's where we look at BEE, women and youth. And looking in those, say, areas of interest, we do have the youth offering that we have currently running at the IDC. It has two elements. So we've got the first one, which is the Youth Scheme. It's a fund that is there to support the youth entrepreneurs that are operating in any sector that the IDC is essentially working on. But we have taken that and make it focused more for the filmmakers. And the other aspect of the youth offering includes the Youth Pipeline Development Program. That is really to assist the entrepreneurs when they start in their business. I think Sikhulule Moyeni mentioned the requirement of say the financials and stuff earlier on. For young entrepreneurs, usually those are not readily available. Then that Youth Pipeline Development Program sort of assists in developing that before the application then is processed by the IDC. And in terms of the fund size, the GROW-E is it was allocated to 950 million, so just 50 million short of a billion. And that we can use in the three instruments that I spoke about. And the range for that, it's that minimum cap of 1 million that IDC has, but the maximum cap is 50 million per transaction. The Youth Pipeline Development utilizes that other 50 million to make the fund the full 1 billion. And well, it is used to assist the applicants in the pre-stage and afterwards. So the qualifying criteria for the GROW-E scheme, I think okay, it's quite a number of them. I'm not gonna go through all of them for the sake of your time, Chair. So I think the most important one is that we require that above 25%, so it's typically 26% ownership, should be by a person below the age of 36. So the person should be below the age of 36 when we go to our committee. So yeah, if you're 35 and a half, when you go to the committee, it's still fine. Although by general definition, you are outside of youth. But if you're below 36, it's still fine. There's other criteria. I don't think they are that important. Typically jobs that cost per job, it is important, but it's usually not an issue in most applications that come through to the IDC. And maybe jumping to the instruments, I did indicate how they work. So I said in general IDC, if you are applying, the interest rate will be about, for cash flowing will be about prime plus 1.5. But for the youth, that differs, and it differs with percentage of youth shareholder holding in the business. For 26% or above 26%, it will be a prime less 2%. And if we are using the other instruments, the venture loan or the equity, the return on that it's around 6%. Typically, it's around 13%. So it is quite a discount on that. And then if the ownership is above 50%, then the interest will be at prime less 3%, and the return on the equity, it's a 5% res IRR. I think those are probably the most important ones for the youth scheme, and in how it is positioned. For the Youth Pipeline Development Plan, I think the important part, it's that we do provide assistance before the basic assessment. in that we will assist with the financials and in setting up the financials or some technical requirements if there are any. And yeah, in terms of the amount that each applicant can get, it's up to 6% of the potential investment, but capped at 500,000, so 500,000. There is post-approval assistance that we do provide. I'll say this will be typical if the producer, maybe it's a very young producer, they need some business support for their business to grow. And in that, we can provide up to 40% of the invested amount or up to a cap of 1.5 million. I think this is the team that we have. Yeah, no, I'll have to say we are a bit short at this stage, but this is the team that we have. It's our executive, Mr. Mia, and our head of the SBU. I think it's the friend of the industry, Mr. Bapela. That's myself. And Mr. Nkuta, he is the youth champion for the ITC, so that's why I have him here. Typical applications, the youth applications will go through, we will work together with him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malebongwe. I'm just laughing when I see the team that I'm quite disappointed that there's no youth and there's no women, but we're not there. I just have a question. I wrote it down here. What are the primary reasons that the youth-led applications fail, especially when it comes to the bankability test when you're doing your selection phases? Like, what are some of the reasons?
Typical reason why maybe we will tend to have a longer interactions before we even start the transaction. It's because the recruitment plan it is simply not working. It's typically that what you will say the projections from the distributor will be indicating a 10 million, but maybe the value to actually do the project is around also maybe 10 or 11 million. So it doesn't really tie up. You're not gonna make enough money, or you will not be able to repay the ITC. So that's usually the problem. But yeah, typically you will find the value, say maybe at 10 million, and then what the project is gonna make, it's around 7 or something. Then it just leaves you out. That's the typical problem.
And if, say, for instance, the project doesn't make much profit, what does it mean? Because as a documentary, it's really difficult to measure the amount of profit that you're going to make for your project. What does it mean for that?
Yeah, our funding in the space, it's really based on the economic merits of the project. Yeah, typically we will say that on the creative side, we are not really involved. So we will not come into your project and tell you to change this and that to make the film look better or the documentary sound better. Yeah. What we typically look at is strictly on the economic merits of the project. So if the project will be able to make money to repay the IDC, then we do take on the project and then provide the funding for it.
Okay, righty. Thank you so much. That's quite a technical part of the session, but extremely important for us to learn and to understand. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, but before I do so, he has a teaser trailer of his production to share with us. Amira, can you please share the short teaser?
Listen. Bona mo mzansi awubatla uphila ibuleke qoba TV ikabe olite uto thabalena.
The system said no mixing of races. We did it.
Thank you so much, Amira, and thank you, Mpho, for such a lovely video that shows us briefly about your company and what your company does. Moving forward, we've heard from Mr. Malibongwe about the IDC fund, and I would like to call upon you just to share, as a young person who is running their own production companies, based on what Mr. Nzuza shared. Do you think you're going to qualify for the fund? And you can also just continue share about your journey running your own production company, how it's been like, what has been one of the greatest challenges that you've come across as a production.
Hey, I'm listening to the presentation. I'm like, hey. So it felt daunting and scary. And I must say, I share the same sentiments that Seku, mentioned in the beginning of her presentation. Just as a disclaimer, what we just watched, it's some of the films are not my films. I only have two films on the trailer. That trailer represents a platform that we run under 1976 films, which is a 76 cinema. Basically, it's just a platform where we are trying to create, a culture of consuming South African-made films. We're also using that platform as a way of developing audiences, right? So that's one aspect of the things that we do at 1976 Films. This project, to be honest, and some of the projects that I've done to date, these are projects that I never planned to do, right? I speak of this particular project because how it came about is the year is 2023. We're at Durban Film Mart. The current acting CEO of the NAVF does a presentation. It was during the time of PEP's funding. So she's explaining how the application has been going, and she has a slide, that we can see, and she's saying, we can see how many people have applied for what, all these provinces. So Free State was one of those provinces where there was not much of applicants, right? And she explained the training, what is required for you to get, the funding in terms of training, production, and she spoke about public movie screenings, right? It's how she explained it. She's like, okay, so you can get a film and then create a space and invite audience to come and watch. I'm like, what? So I can get films and get an audience and then we watch and I get the money. She's like, yes. I'm like, I took my chances, right? And I applied. And I think it was just in a space of a week where I just went through the application, spoke with a few directors that were at the film mart. They never came through for me. The first person whom I screened her film, the first two people that I screened their film was for South Africa on a film called Letters of Hope, and Sihle Hlophe, her documentary Lobola. I just went straight to them to say, I want to screen a film. What are the charges? Put in an application, and I left it. And that's how 76 Cinema came about. So this has been, it's 4 years in the run. I've been privileged enough that the past years, since 2023, the NAVF has been able to fund the project that I was able then to keep running it on a yearly basis. Last year, I think we had a much greater impact with that particular project in that we're able to then not only focus in Bloemfontein or not only have two screenings where we just have a 2-day screening in Bloemfontein and that was it. But at least with the funding last year, I was able then to, I think, host almost 12 screenings and reach different audiences and all sort of things. So that's one of the projects that we do. I must say also, I met film or television in Gauteng. I'm not from Gauteng, I don't have relatives there. So me wanting to pursue theater, I started in the theater space, and it's while I was in theater that I had this interest of wanting to work behind the scenes. I never got to work behind the scenes in theater in any productions, except to do assist in auditions, but I never got to work on that show. And then I went to Nemisa. That's when the behind the scenes television thing came about. So I'm mentioning this thing just to highlight that coming from the Free State, which is which is a province that is not known for film. I mean, there's no production companies and all sort of thing, right? It forces one then to leave home and go and find the skill outside of home, right? So one then got to freelance, couple of projects. And as much as I loved freelancing for the opportunity that it gives you in working in different productions in a shorter space of time, unfortunately, I was not that lucky to get gigs back to back. So I would work for 3 months and I would not work for the next 3 months. So basically, there was no growth for me in terms of living in Gauteng, because then I was running out of money and I didn't want to stress my parents. They send me money. So when I saw that things are not happening, I'm like, let me just go back home. But that said, I've always had a desire to want to always come back home and do something, and then go back to Gauteng and do something. And I remember just one time I asked somebody that I knew, can I just shoot your story? We are selling clothes and all sort of thing. Can I just do a documentary with you? I look at it now, I realize it's a promotional film. It's not necessarily your documentary, but the idea was, let me just try and shoot something just so that I can prove to myself that I can put something together. So now that I'm no longer in Gauteng, I'm like, I'm here. So what do I do? There are no production companies and all sort of thing. And now you're forced to, that is, the desire to tell stories is there. So what do? You just have to figure it out yourself, right? And I also kind of picked up that sometimes opportunities would come, right? And they find you not ready, right? So what I used to do is, opportunity, I would see NVF is offering this and that, and I would pass it to people and simply said I was not ready in a sense of there was nothing that I've written down. So it's just the concept that it's not written down, that's not been tried out in terms of research and all sort of thing. It was until I felt I have no choice but to create for myself, because there are no employment opportunities in terms of film and television in Bloemfontein. So now what do? You create a space for yourself. So that's how 1976 came about. And then I got this idea to go to the NVF. I've got this idea. Please help me with this idea. They helped me. I'm here to shoot that particular film, right? So, and I was fortunate that at that time when I did that project, the late Lizelle was still around, and she held my hand basically when I joined the organization. I sent her my material. She went through it. Like, you can change the budget here, adjust it here and there. So I then got to learn how to kind of navigate the NFEF system type of thing, right? Because the idea is, whenever you get something from the NVF, at least now you know far better than somebody who has not necessarily got the funding from the NFF. Of course, this thing of opening companies is also a daunting thing, because you open it, there's nothing that's happening. You open a bank account, it get closed. So I only opened my bank account when the NFF said, thumbs up, we are funding you for a project. That's when I rushed to the bank, open a bank account, because then the money has to come into a bank account, right? So when your 76 NEMA came about, and when I was doing it, for me, there was some sort of a slight change. I felt I'm betraying myself, because I'm wanting to shoot, to produce, and all sort of thing, right? And then I shifted the attention from that thing. I simply started it because I saw the potential that there's nothing of that nature that is happening, right? And I would make reference with Doc Love. I wanted to, and I eventually got to do that. Managed to bring Doc Love in Bloemfontein, which is something that I needed to say, hey, there's Bloemfontein. There's not much of us, but I just needed a platform that was already had national reach. I'm like, okay, there's Bloemfontein. I'm here. I'm missing out on the films that have been screened and all sort of thing. So when I started mine, it was, like I said, it was just a question of being at the right time, at the right place, and I've ran that thing. But then I asked myself, if then we are focusing on doing the screenings, what what then happens with you producing and directing and all sort of thing. And I kind of realized that this thing it's a value chain of sort, right? In as much as I was not interested or planned to do this thing, but I also got to learn that at least with the conversation that I once had with Sita, to say, advantage with the work that you do is, in as much as you say like producing, directing, creating films, you then teaching yourself how to self-distribute, right? So then it answers the question of I'm not betraying the fact that I am living this thing of producing and all sort of thing, but equally is a question of there aren't any platforms in Bloemfontein, or at least there are not that many platforms in Bloemfontein where we're doing public screenings and all sort of thing. Now, the third project that we are doing, it also came as a result of being mentored by Boloba Taba when we did my short documentary film, Glow in the Dark, right? So we got to do the project. They were able to get the funds and ultimately get to shoot the film. The whole process was to help us develop our films, and then that was it. But they then it to get the funding, and then we were able to shoot our project as a slate. So, and because you share these things on TikTok and all sort of thing, it then creates an impression that 1976 is the biggest company with funds. I can hire people. I'm like, hey guys. So people would approach me for assist us with this and that, and I'm thinking to myself, still trying to find my feet here. I'm taking my chances most of the time. Some of the things I also don't understand, but I'm just relying on the fact that I have this idea, I've got this desire, and mine is also to help contribute to the development of film sector in Free State in Bloemfontein, because the idea or the appearance is that there's nothing happening here, right? So I, at least with other people that I work with, trying to say, yeah, we are here, we're doing this project and all sort of thing. So as a result of people reaching out to me, say, hey, Mpho, help us and all sort of thing, I don't have the capacity. I then thought of a concept where we can mentor other, emerging script writers, right? And I'm like, okay, let me not focus on documentary, but let me focus on fiction work. And that's how Screenplay Writers Lab came about, right? And I reached out to Boloba Taba to say, please assist me. I've got this idea. I also reached out to somebody who is a TV script writer, head writer. I'm like, I've got this idea. I don't know how to write scripts, but I have this idea, and this is what I see the whole thing, coming out. It's like, okay, cool. Just send me whatever that you have. Let me look at it, and then somewhat NAVF open a calling. We took our chances, and thumbs up. Like, cool. Let's give you the money to do the project. So I would say I've somewhat been privileged enough that for the past years I've been able to do projects simply because the NAVF has given me that support. But from where I am, we do not necessarily enjoy your type of Gauteng Film Commission type of thing. There's nothing of this nature. We're not necessarily getting a support from our provincial government. So as a result of that, you end up relying in one institution, which is the NAVF. But then when there's IDC that comes on play, they have their own requirements, and you're like, hey, this one. So you're like, I'll pass. Your heart doesn't want to pass, but you see what they're requesting, like, hey guys, hey, it's okay, let's leave it. But those things are also good, because then they're telling you that because you want to go in the space, these are the things that you're going to encounter. But it also feels like, more workshops, IDC coming and saying this is how these things are done, so that we also don't find ourselves only relying on the NAVF and all sort of things. So I think for me, that's always been that question of how do you sustain yourself because applying for funds also it's a risky thing. You can get it, you might not get it. If the NAVF doesn't give you money, it means for the next whatever period of time you're gonna get funding from anywhere. So I think that idea of having to sustain yourself is the most critical one in terms of challenges. But I look at it, I'm like, hey man, you are here, the paperwork, you have to do it. Where you need to request for assistance, get a bookkeeper, get an accountant to assist you. It's basically that. And yeah, so now in conclusion, we just wrapped up our project, which was 6 months long. We had about 7 writers. We've got about 7 scripts. Now the greatest challenge now is to see them, come into life, and that's the next big challenge, to say how then do we, as 1976, get the funds to actually produce these films, because there's a million people, and the recouping and the loans, and like, hey guys, so yeah. But the idea is for those films to be shot and see how best we can go about it. In a nutshell, that's me, 1976 film. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mpho, for sharing your dedication and how you are able to adapt every year to make it work. It is admirable and inspiring. I want to open it up to the floor. However, I do have questions for both of you. In terms of both of you spoke a bit about collaborations and mentorships. How do you maneuver around creative collaborations when you're working with other creatives, and how do you go about it for anybody in here wanting to do the same? Because it does seem like we can't do it just on our own. We need each other to be able to achieve our dream and to thrive in this industry. How were both of you able to do it? Otherwise, I'll also open it up to the floor for any burning discussion points or questions for Siku, Mpho, or Mr. Malibongwe, who is still here with us.
Okay, let me just maybe answer it. I think the question of relations, right? I'll make an example in terms of how I also managed to get assistance here and there. Being part of the organization also assists, right? Because then at least my experiences, the people that I tried to reach out to, in Facebooks and all that, and they never believed or they never bought into my story. But as a result of being in an organization and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, now they believe, oh, this person is legit and is in the space, right? You go to your they've been film mats and all sort of thing, you introduce yourself to say, this is who I am, this is what I do. Typical example, I met Sarah Blatch at Durban Film Mart. I explained the project that we are doing. Can I please, can I invite her to come and share about, intimacy coordination and all sort of thing. I think being in that space, it becomes easier, for her to say, oh, this person is legit. But also when you keep working with people, I believe you do, what you call, build relations. The person who edited this trailer is somebody that I've met in the industry. I'm like, Mpho, I don't have money, please help me out, my man. I just need this 1 minute thing. So I think with question of relations and all sort of thing, and interacting with industry people at industry events, they tend to, one guy once said to me, hey, my man, I saw your inbox, but I was not sure of your story. But because you are here, I see you are legit. So all those things, they tend to work to one's advantage. And because you are in that space, somebody is able to introduce you. And because you are being introduced by someone else, that person you are being introduced to also believe, or this person is capable, right? I've met Khalid. Whenever you would meet somewhere, you would want to introduce me to somebody else. This is important. This is what he does in Bloom. What. So that way, there's question of them being able to reach out to people and all sort of thing and request assistance. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Also joining programs that are there. Caroline, I joined her program last year where they were teaching people about producing and line producing, and so it helps. Now they see there's Mpho in Bloom who does something like this. So if they reach out, it becomes easier maybe to listen to.
Thank you so much. I want to bring back Siku if you have any additions and contributions to what, and then back to you, Shelly, to maybe ask your question to Malibongwe.
I couldn't agree more with Paul. It's mostly part of engaging and networking and also reaching out. And aside from that, also, it's get your work out there, put it out there. If it means putting your small little snippets of videos out in social media, people are bound to reach out, and making sure that you maintain those relationships with your fellow creatives. That's the most important part of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Shirley, do you want to pose your question to Mr. Malubongwe?
Hi, yes, thanks for the opportunity. I just wanted to find out, even I'm older in the industry, but I'm sort of back into it after years of being out of it. So I kind of feel like I'm an emerging filmmaker, not so much a useful one. But I'm curious, in the youthful market, as it were, if you're an emerging filmmaker, your experience and your knowledge obviously is building and growing. So at what point do you apply to the IDC for funding? So are you applying, do you get mentored? Like if I say I want to apply for the Youth Pipeline or the Grow E, am I applying for support to get mentorship to grow my business or my idea or my production? I'm a little bit not really sure, because it seems that you have to jump through quite a lot of hoops, paperwork wise, and you have to be at a certain level to get the funding. So I'm wondering, with these two funds, does it work slightly differently? Do you get mentored in that process to apply? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And I think we have noted that the uptake on the fund has been low. And yeah, the reasons behind that, yeah, I think they could be many. I think the industry in general, with the DTIC not approving anything, it's been on the slower side. So what was the plan was for the youth to probably look at requesting some of the funds within the youth pipeline development, and maybe as put in some established producers to assist the youth, but that has not happened as yet. So to sort of assist the youth in packaging the applications, yeah, before they bring them to the IDC, because we do realize that there is a gap in that, and that it does take some time to put the documents together to make the application. So there is that. I do not really have the timelines at this stage of when will that happen exactly, in getting those established producers who will be assisting the youth, but there is a plan towards that.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And then there's a question on the chat from Mahofe. She's asking that how does the accreditation work when it comes to collaborations when you're applying for the funding? And I can open this question up to the floor. Is it specifically for the IDC, Mahofe, or is it for everyone to respond to in terms of like accreditation when you're collaborating with other filmmakers? Anyone wants to answer that? I don't know if Mr. Malubongo, you can answer
Yeah,
that, or
I'm
it's
not
not
I'm
really
not too sure
relevant.
of the question, but if
Yeah.
Sayla can maybe assist a bit in explaining what that means, or if anyone does
Yeah.
understand, Caroline, maybe.
Mahofe, maybe you can share from your point of view in terms of the question that you are asking about accreditation on collaboration. If you're still here, are you able to share?
Hi, Neil. My question was directed at Mpho. So I wanted to know, he mentioned something about Bolobataba. So I wanted to know how exactly does the collaboration with accreditation work? Because they provide accreditation with regards to the NVF application.
So because my company is not registered as a training provider, and I work with Bolobataba, we just got into memorandum of understanding to say you will come into the project as an assessor. I'll facilitate the whole thing. I'll do the recruitment and all sort of things. So basically, they were coming in and endorse my application and to the NABEP to say I've got a company that's registered as a service provider. But in terms of the content, myself and the facilitator, we had to come up with it, send it to Bolobataba to kind of assess it and see, okay, it's proper. So with this training, it's not a accredited course where at the end of the or at the end of the training that it's NQF level 4, anything like that. It's just a non-credited course. But in terms of the collaboration, we had to sign that memorandum of understanding.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mahofi, for that question. Such an important question to learn about the collaborations that you do and the agreements that you get onto. Alet, I don't know if you want to ask the question to Malibongwe, to pose the question to Malibongwe.
Yes, thank you, Maribongo. I'm just thinking, as a producer, you don't really know, particularly in our field, documentary, you don't know if your documentary is going to make money. So, say if you sort of hope and you kind of like work out it's probably going to make money, but then something happens and you don't get that money, and we can't pay you back the money that we borrowed from you. What happens? Like, is there some legal thing? Are you going to sue, a producer who can't pay you back immediately, or what happens? Thank you.
Yeah, usually our the instruments that we have, they allow for payments to be made when there's cash flowing coming to the business or to the SPV that was set up for the business. It's usually set up in that way. But I'll have to note that in the recent applications, there has been a request from our committees for producers to put in personal surety in the projects. But generally, the IDC is not a harsh lender like your commercial banks. We do understand that we are a development bank. So if in cases where there is misuse of funds or misappropriation of funds, we do come for you. But in cases where it is really market failure, we do have considerations of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Zanda, do you want to come in and ask your question? Maybe. I think it's just so much better to hear other people's voices and not just one.
Okay, I wanted to ask the question to Mr. Nzuza, that when one is building a repertoire in the industry and trying their hand in various avenues, at times there are prospects for travel or to pursue completion for their projects. And I'm wondering whether the IDC ever has mobility grants or refers film professionals to other possible prospects for mobility.
Yeah, no, at this stage, we do not have grants or funding for filmmakers to travel. I think that usually lies in the mandates of the NFVF or the other film commissions, the provincial film commissions. At this stage, no, we do not have.
Amazing.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Zanda, for that question. Jody, do you want to come in and ask your question?
Sure, I'm happy to. Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation, and so my question is for Mr. Nzuza. I've heard a rumor that in order to be eligible, you need to have a distributor already attached to your project for the youth funding. I wanted to find out if this was true, and if so, why is there a need to have a distributor attached if we already have our own relationships with broadcasters or could do our own independent theatrical release directly with these cinemas? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, for typical applications is that we will, I think I expressed that our really assessment on these are based on the finances. So for us to have an assessment in the recruitment plan, recruitment schedule, if you want to call it that, it's typically the top line of that will be provided by a distributor. to give you an estimation of maybe based on the distributors' contacts, say around the world, to say if I've got a film or documentary of this nature, I can sell it to these territories for this amount, and then that will give you your cross receipts. So the amount that you'll get worldwide for the sale of your production. So it is typically based on that, and on the fact that in the projects that have that were not successful or that did not make money, we found more that the producers will typically get any distributor later on, say, just come in and distribute this for me, and the distributors who come in at that stage, they do not really have say skin in the game or interest in the film. Their interest is purely to make that to make their commission. So they might not have interest. So we would like to assess that upfront so that we avoid what I answered a bit earlier on in terms of so that we avoid having projects that fail financially. I think we do believe that it is also in the interest of the producer to sort of get an idea of whether the projects will make money or not, so that you can make the necessary adjustments earlier on in the projects. If you say need to get more, maybe soft loans or reduce the production costs so that your projects will give you money ultimately. Because yeah, I think part of what the IDC intends in doing in the sector is to ensure that our creatives, they do not really die poor, as it has been happening. And it is in missing those critical things earlier on in the development of your projects that then leads to that. You will do a great project, but not really get the money because you will be having, say, distributors trying to take you for a ride.
Would I be able to ask a follow-up question? Just with regards to distributors, because obviously they take quite a fee on whatever they are able to make. I just wanted to understand, like, would there be exceptional cases where you are willing to consider that young filmmakers have partnered with a producer that has a thorough track record of making profit, selling the films internationally, doing theatrical, rather than going with a distributor? Thank you.
Yeah, we will assess that, but typically we would like to get an independent party to give us the estimations for how much the film is going to cross, say internationally, because yeah, well, producers will just give you a higher number and make the numbers look good. So we will require to get some numbers from an independent party. If we can navigate around those, then it should be something that we can consider.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Siku, you can go ahead, ask your question.
Well, my question is, would a strong digital first distribution strategy be considered viable, which is like your YouTube streaming services and your VOD forward?
Which will be YouTube?
Streaming services or your VOD?
Yeah, I think most of the films now are sold via the streamers. So yeah, if we do get projections on how much you potentially gonna make in those, it is something that we consider. YouTube, we've not really worked much with it, but I think we're quite open if it's in a YouTube platform where there is some predictability on, say, how much you can make per episode and how will that look like, say, in the coming years. Because usually when content is sitting on YouTube, somebody will be watching for a number of years going forward. So if there is that predictability, it is something that we are willing to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully
Thank you so much. Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry,
In an
you can go ahead.
established YouTube channel, if it's just a new YouTube channel with 2 subscribers, it just becomes difficult.
Okay. Understand.
Shelly, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just taking up from Siku's question, if you're a producer of VR content, like, you're going to then your distribution channels are slightly different. You're not going on Netflix or you're not going on a traditional broadcaster. So basically, you will be producing a product, a documentary on VR. We recently did a 360 one, but you're going to be sold, you're going to distribute through a lot of will be video on demand, or it will be streamers that sell or platforms that will sell your film, for somebody that can perhaps watch it with a headset. So that obviously you can get a letter of intent, say from, I think it was called VR or Meta or platforms like that. Oculus might have platforms, but is that enough? If I can say, well, I want to make a 360 documentary and I'm going to, I've got a letter of intent from a platform. Is that enough in terms of distribution? It's not your traditional distribution, basically.
Yeah, I think on that marketing part, it's more predictability that we would like to see. I think the example I was giving on YouTube, if it's an established platform, probably with a healthy number of subscribers, we get an idea of how much you get per minute, which yeah, a typical number for YouTubers. So it becomes easier if there is that predictability. We do understand in the space it's quite difficult to get those numbers right. That's why we will sort of try and rely on a third party to estimate those numbers. So if there is a way to give some predictability on how much one is going to make from that content that has been created, then it becomes easier.
Sorry, so can I just say, so if it's, say, an environmental documentary and it goes on to, say, Meta or one of the platforms, and they say is it enough for them to say, well, films that are currently within the environmental market or social impact sector will currently have X views or earn so? Is that enough, or are you saying an actual third party, somebody who can come in and prove that?
Yeah, we will probably tend to rely on a third party. Yeah, because yeah, otherwise we just people will tend to give you an example of the best performing content in that space and say, yeah, no, I'm gonna perform at that. But we know that the majority of the films are not really at the top, say 5% or of the performing firms in the space.
Great. We have 10 more minutes to go. I am open to allow 2 more hands if you have any burning questions for our speakers. This is your chance. Otherwise, I'm happy to close the session. Any questions? Anyone? All righty. If there are no other questions for our speakers, I will take this opportunity to really thank everybody for joining our session this evening, to thank Amira for your ongoing support behind the scenes and the DocShare team for keeping this going. And also a note to all the DFA members, please, if you are available and keen to host or join the DocShare team that is making this all possible, please do not hesitate to shout out or reach out to us. The more hands on deck, the better. It is a creative, collaborative process. So please, please, please do join and support the growth of the sessions. Thank you so much to our speakers for your time, for your for all the knowledge and the engagement, and to everybody here who has been engaging and making the session possible. We really appreciate your time, your effort, and please join us again next week. As Enva mentioned a bit previously earlier on the session about the importance of, as emerging filmmakers, to work with NGOs our next session is basically focusing on that, on how you, as filmmakers or activist filmmakers, can work with NGOs in making sure that our films get made. And we'll be joined by absolutely amazing speakers who will be speaking more about filmmaking in the NGO space. So please, please, please do join, same time, same place. The link will be shared. If you're not already a member, I hope that you got inspired by this session to join the amazing documentary community and become a member. You can simply go to our Documentary Filmmakers Association website and click on Become a Member. And after that, you will be added to our community. The recording for this session will be shared in April. I think it's after the last session in April that we have. Otherwise, that's it from us. And thank you so much, everybody. Have an amazing evening.